Another night of cold weather in the eastern half of the U.S. with various frost and freeze mornings all the way down to the Gulf Coast again. Our storm system around the Great Lakes should be pulling out, though, over the next day or two, but it's going to leave a little piece behind, and that's going to perhaps impact the weekend for the coastal mid-Atlantic on up into New England, and that will be discussed along with other things tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. Where is West Babylon, New York? It's in southwest Suffolk County. Where is southwest Suffolk County? It's on Long Island, and they serve the entire New York, New Jersey, Connecticut tri-state area with everything you need this coming winter, not just snow plows, snow blowers, but they've got Long Island's largest supply. They are Long Island's largest supplier of rock salt, and people come from all over outside of Long Island to pick it up because they have the lowest prices around. Also, still plenty of mulch if you want to season it up for the rest of the fall, and storm supplies, including batteries, generators, flashlights, sump pumps, and more. 631-756-1125. The best prices anywhere. And, of course, we all know what the website is, Joe Rayo.
We do?
We do. What is that website?
Well, let's see.
They're a sponsor. Get it right.
OmniTrueValue.com. Da-da.
He said with joy. So, broke 50 today here. And it felt better, although there was a bit of a wind to deal with. But it definitely felt better than yesterday. Yesterday was god-awful, Joe. I just find it incredible that here in North Georgia, now, granted, I am at 2,200 feet up, so, that makes a difference. But to have a day in the middle of October where the temperature can't even get above 43 for a high after a low of 30 that's cold. That's cold. That's at least 20 degrees below average.
You beat me by 1 degree. I bottomed out at 31. I'm not sure how high the temperature got today, but probably close to where you were. I'm making the assumption that we did get to 50 today here. Maybe not. And I agree with you, Chuck Cardillo, on the chat board. Said, I hate fall. Every day I'm out blowing or raking leaves. I didn't even make the attempt today to blow because the winds were gusty.
Well, that's good to hear.
Hold on. I did not hear. No, but she just gave me the high temperature for today, but I have my intercom system is down very low, so I could not hear what she said. Maybe if she typed it on the chat board, I'd be able to say, or you'd be able to see what it was here today. But in any case, it was no use trying to blow because nature was doing it for me, and then the leaves were continuing to come down. And tomorrow it's going to be useless to do it because the winds, I believe, tomorrow southwesterly, I think we're going to be gusting, Joe, to 20 and 25 miles an hour or more. And it's going to be just as chilly tomorrow as it was today. So there's not much I can do. My entire backyard looks like it has an orange carpet placed over it. That's to give you an idea of just how many leaves have fallen over the last couple of days around here.
In a setup like we're setting, like we're going to have on Thursday, and this happens in the wintertime, certainly when you get into December, January, and maybe even through the first part of February, when it's actually colder relative to normal in the south than it is in the north. Well, when that southwest wind blows, it's not blowing up warm air. It's blowing up modified cold air, and it takes a while for the warm-up to occur. That's why we probably won't really see – Saturday will probably be the one day where temperatures respond nicely depending on how much sun we get in eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England. And, of course, so we should see temperatures moderating pretty much up and down the eastern seaboard. But the shrinking daylight and everything else as we get deeper into October and start making our way through November and December, it gets harder and harder to bring those temperatures up.
It's getting. I really hate it. When I'll wake up, let's say, open an eye at like 7 o'clock or 6:55 in the morning, and it's dark. And I say, I can't stand this. I can't deal with this. It makes me just want to roll over and just go right back to sleep, which is what I do. Now, when we go finally off of daylight time in a couple of more weeks, at least it'll be semi-bright again at 7 a.m. But this really stinks.
Yes,
And
it
this year,
does.
Joe, and this year almost, I mean, the daylight saving time or standard time returning will occur on November the 6th. And I think that's within like a day, one day of the latest possible date that it can possibly come off. Since now we have daylight time continuing into early November, so I really as Bob Grant, the great Bob Grant used to say, I despise daylight saving time. I despise it.
Well,
So
you do. And have made it very, very clear. Johnny Quest gets the first snow of the season award. Now he is 3,500 feet up on the top of some beautiful mountain in northwestern Virginia, but Joe, he got a couple of inches of snow last night, and so he's the first one. He even beat Chuck Cardillo, who's up in
yeah,
the 3,000 foot land in rarefied air up there in the Catskills. Now, we do have, as far as the weekend is concerned, it's becoming more and more apparent that Sunday is going to be a problem. Uh, Earl Warren, now I didn't, I've been, reading your posts on the chat board with regards to this low. I don't think this is going to be a tropical system, and I've got a number of, I have a number of reasons why, and we'll get to that when we start looking at the models in the forecast. But uh, I think the primary problem is the fact that there's no time. This low forms, Joe, and it moves up fairly quickly. It doesn't have the time. It needs time to sit over the warm waters of the southeast. If it was going to sit off the southeast coast for a couple of days, we might be having a different conversation. But it's not going to do that. So I'm leaning against the idea that this is going to become a tropical system.
okay. Well, whether or not it's going to be tropical or just a plain old cold core low, it still means that our upcoming weekend, the end of the upcoming weekend, looks to be somewhat cloudy and could be rather wet. I did mention, Joe, the possibility. I just said for Sunday, my forecast for the Hudson Valley, lower Hudson Valley, clouding up with a chance for some showers by later in the day. And leaving that Saturday will be a much different story. Saturday looks like a gorgeous day with lots of sunshine, and with any luck, we'll make it into the upper 60s. And maybe that'll be the day, if not Saturday, maybe Friday, when I can finally get out there and start blowing and removing all of these leaves that are now on the ground and not up in the trees. People say, oh, how beautiful the colors are. Yeah, they're beautiful. But you know what? A large percentage of those leaves are now on my lawn as opposed to being where they should be up in the trees for another little while longer.
God should have designed trees like umbrellas, and then you could have just clicked the button on the bottom and just folded them for the winter time. I think you would
Yeah,
have been. I think you would have been happy about that if the good
well,
Lord had done that.
that's what the big Christmas tree in the cartoon How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Um, that's what the Grinch does to the Christmas tree. He more or less makes it out to be like a giant umbrella and folds it up and then sticks it in the ramshackle sleigh, as Boris Karloff refers to it. And what's done is done. So,
Well,
oh well.
big hellos to everybody on the chat board tonight. Alfred K. Phillips, you missed it yesterday. We used Barrow, Alaska, was trying to figure out whether it was going to be above 28 inches or below 28 inches for the season on last night's Briller Jeopardy, and turns out that it's slightly above for the whole year. So you would have been proud. We spoke of your land up on the north slope of Alaska, and welcome to anybody. I know there's a lot of lurkers out there on the Joe and Joe Weather Show. watching watching us tonight. So if you'd like, certainly subscribe to my YouTube channel and set your notifications so that you can watch the Joe and Joe Weather Show well, we're on 5 days a week, Monday through Thursday. Start time usually at 7:35 Eastern, and Sunday mornings usual start time, excuse me, at 11 a.m. Eastern time. Friday and Saturdays we take off, but if they're in the event that there is some weather of consequence on those 2 days, Joe and I usually bend our schedule in order to accommodate, and we will of course let you know if when that happens, because it's not going to happen this Thursday and Friday. I need 2 days off. This Friday and Saturday, because I need 2 days off.
So do I. Well, actually, yeah, I need those 2 days off to try to, get rid of all these leaves. But that's something else, And as I said on Sunday, when people ask me, living up here in the quote country, what season do you hate the most, fall or winter? They expected me to say winter because they say, oh, you get a lot of snow and ice. No, I hate fall because, as I said, in the winter, if we get a big snowfall, usually that means that after I clear away all the snow, it's not going to snow again for a while, several days, maybe even a week or two of that magnitude. At this time of the year, as was the case on Sunday, blew everything, mulched everything into the ground. Both the front and back lawn looked like the top of a billiard table or a pool table. Beautiful, green, flat, nothing anywhere. Next morning, I looked out. It looked like I did nothing. All these leaves just came down on Sunday night and Monday, and I haven't done anything since. I'm hoping to do something on Friday. Too windy tomorrow, I think.
Yep.
Too windy.
Meanwhile, on the satellite, our storm system that's been sitting over eastern Lake Huron for the last 3 days now is finally starting to show signs of moving eastward. And look at the old cold front from a couple of days ago. Look how far out it is in the Atlantic, but more importantly, look how far south it's gotten into the Gulf of Mexico. In fact, the cold air over the Gulf of Mexico, while the visible is still going, you could see the clouds that developed, the cold air overrunning over the warm waters of the Gulf. And I guarantee you that those warm waters of the Gulf are no longer as warm as they were after this cold frontal passage. And meanwhile, Joe, the rest of the country is nice and quiet. Most of the U.S. today, I would say probably about 90% of the United States, however many millions of people that is. So what, 90%? I don't know how the population would work out, but a lot of people enjoyed a nice day of sunshine today.
Yes, the majority of the country enjoying a lovely, lovely day, a bit of a break from the unsettled, unsettled conditions. But still, the problem, and everybody seems to find a problem with the weather. The problem is, of course, the cold that is enveloping a good part of the contiguous United States. But as we have just pointed out, Joe, a few moments ago, it will warm up gradually. It's going to warm by later in the weekend into the start of the weekend.
Patches of rain and snow continue, although the area has shifted eastward over Lake Huron and into that part of Canada between Lake Huron and Lakes Erie and Ontario, and also seeing some rain and snow shower activity in southwestern New York and in northwestern Pennsylvania. Looks like it's mostly rain, though, in north central New York as this upper low continues to kind of struggle its way eastward. Meanwhile, along the closer to the coast, radars are quiet today, except for easternmost Maine now is still getting some showers there. Everybody else is doing well. Radars are absolutely silent over the rest of the U.S., with the exception of southernmost Florida, where they're close to that frontal boundary, and they're getting some light showers in southernmost Florida. But that is a very, very quiet radar. Now, the weather prediction folks, our friends at WPC, taking a look at this. This is about as free of rain as you're going to ever see on a map here in the United States. This is day one, and No, just about everybody except the area around the lakes. And most of what's going to happen around the lakes is actually going to take place now and diminish as we move into the day tomorrow. But it's just silent. Not a flake, not an ice pellet, not a raindrop. Day two, the upper left and the lower right get a little bit of precipitation and just a little teensy bit of precip around parts of the east shores of Lake Erie, in and around Buffalo and off Lake Ontario, and that's it. So another dry day to finish off the week, Thursday night into Friday night. Saturday gets a little busy in the Pacific Northwest of the Northern Rockies, and some of that's going to be snow. But the rest of the country is quiet. But you can see WPC's got this area of rain off the East Coast. And that is for Sunday. And this is from this map is valid from Saturday night to Sunday night, 8 o'clock Saturday to 8 o'clock Sunday, 8 p.m. Saturday to 8 p.m. Sunday. And you can see that they back precip to the northwest. Not a lot. This just to about maybe a quarter of an inch touching eastern Long Island and coastal New Jersey. And then you have to add on what falls at night, which is another tenth to a quarter, and in some cases a half to three quarters if you look at southeastern New England. Also, rains and some snow up in the northern plains, but rain up and down the Mississippi Valley, which is really important because of how bone dry it's been there. So this is Monday into Tuesday, and then I'm sorry, Sunday night into Monday night. And then Monday night into Tuesday night, more rain for the Mississippi Valley, but not much going on in the east. And Tuesday night into Wednesday night, the Mississippi Valley rain starts to move into the Ohio Valley and down into the Gulf states for a grand 7-day totals. Here in the dark blue, that's a half an inch. The lighter blue is three quarters. The even lighter blue is an inch plus. And you see how it all shapes up. Southeast New England and southern New England and Long Island might do better here, Joe, with this coastal low coming up.
Yes, it will. If you remember from last Thursday, even where I am, here in Putnam County, we're still under what is being categorized as severe drought conditions. In spite of all the rains that have fallen, all the showers that have fallen in recent weeks, we're still in a significant drought problem here. And the same holds true for portions of southern New England. So we still need a bit more wetness, and every drop will count. And so, yeah, we're looking for some beneficial rains or showers from this system late in the weekend and early next week, not just for where I am, but also in the Hudson Valley, but also for portions of New England as well.
Okay, so let's look at what the upper air is doing here in the east. And if you're wondering why the weekend is going to be a 50-50 split, so here's your deep trough in the eastern part of the United States. And I'll go back to Sunday when that upper trough drops into the Great Lakes and cuts off and just sits there and spins and spins and spins. And notice how far south that jet stream gets. Here we are Wednesday evening, and we've got a flow straight out of Canada right down into the southeast and into Florida. The coldest air has been more to the south than any place else, which is reason why when you look at it with respect to normal, and this is again, we mentioned at the beginning of the show, getting into a southwest flow is not going to warm you up very fast because of the fact that you're basically moving cold air, less cold air to warm it up. So it'll be a slower process. Now, during the day tomorrow, the last upper trough rotates around, and you see it here, right through the northern lakes, swings eastward, and finally reaches the northeast early Friday morning. That's another reason why it's not going to warm up much on Thursday, because we're still really under a cold upper air flow. Well, the upper trough's going to pull out, but the problem is the southern part of that trough, right in here, gets left behind. And the northern part of the jet's doing its job and lifting it up into Canada, but the southern part of the trough here is getting left behind. This is a cold feature. Okay, this is a cold upper air feature, and as it cuts off the Florida coast there, you need it to if this were going to be a tropical system that we're dealing with, you really would need that to sit there for at least several days in order to just try to make the transition over to a warm core system. I just don't think it has that time, because what's happening is, if you look out on the left, in the west, you have a deep trough dropping down into the west and swinging east. And Joe, that acts like a lever or a lever. Which word do you prefer, lever or lever?
I always said lever.
Or you could
Like
lover, or lever.
I mean, it's like the brothers.
Okay. Right, the lever, right. So like a lever, it lifts that upper low northward, that trough, or at least tries to. Now, in this one, does really something strange, because it kind of splits it. It leaves part of the upper low behind, and see, then it drops back down again, and then it waits for the next trough to move into the eastern states at the end of the week. Another vigorous upper low that cuts off into the Great Lakes. This is where I think you'd be thankful that there's no tropical storm in position to affect the East Coast with that kind of an upper low coming down. So we can be thankful for that. And then that plays its way through the east. And if this model run is correct, there's more troughing to deal with at the end of the month and going into November. And this is not a warm look going into the start of November, Mr. Rayo.
Well, not just that, but it looks like it's going to be chilly for a lot of the trick-or-treaters on October 31st. They may have to wear something underneath their costumes to stay warm.
Well, that could very well be.
Yes.
So let's look at the sensible weather, as they like to call it. And here we go. For tomorrow, very quiet. You see the leftover precip pulling out of the lakes and out of the Great Lakes in western New York, and finally done it with rain in Maine, which is great, in eastern Maine. But most of the country, look at that, Joe. There's hardly I can't even see it. There's any green on this map. Thursday night. This is at 2 a.m. Friday morning. There isn't a green spot anywhere. Every radar is going to be purporting nothing. And then on we go into the weekend. There's the meat of the southwest flow is actually more in the Great Lakes than anything else. And then, of course, our high moves out and gets east of Nova Scotia. Now, here comes that low that starts to form off the southeast coast. And it basically brings this arm of rain northward. This is Sunday morning. The GFS has got precip here by day, shortly after daybreak by Sunday. And it rains all day, Sunday into Sunday night, and still some residual showers on Monday. And then another front that's going to approach with a low developing on it and moving up the west side of the Appalachians. So we'll get another cold front maybe along about Thursday, if this is right in terms of timing. And then a shot of cold air to follow for next weekend. And there is also on this map, I noticed, Joe, on the overnight runs, they were trying to make some kind of tropical system in the Caribbean and moving it northward in the long range. And it sort of does that today, although it looks a little less organized than it did on some of the overnight runs. And as far as snow to the west, let me just take a look here. We do have in the northwest, we've got this next low that's coming in and forming in Wyoming. And it looks like some snows for Idaho, western Montana, western Wyoming, and maybe even into Colorado. And eventually the models are still keying on the possibility that there could be some heavier snows in eastern Montana and western North Dakota as this low deepens and moves up into Minnesota and takes a track way to the west.
Yeah, I'm beginning to wonder, Joe, about whether or not we can maintain this unusually fast flow for the next few more weeks. Certainly, it seems that'll be the case. And basically, 3 or 4 days maybe of dry weather, and then all of a sudden you have one of these very fast upper systems, a trough of low pressure that just literally pushes rapidly across from west to east, brings a period of unsettled weather, clouds, and some showers, and that's followed again by another buildup in the ridge, bringing nice weather, and then maybe 3 or 4 days after that, yet another fast-moving system. That seems to be the story for the rest of this month and maybe into the start of November.
We are seeing Yeah, I try to look at these things. We get to this time of year, I'm trying to you sort of try to look for clues as to where we might go in the longer term, and I'm not sure yet. I mean, I certainly think that if you're a winter weather lover, the idea that we're having a colder than normal October is, I'm sure, soothing to you. And I'm just playing with the temperature anomaly map. I mean, this is where we are right now, or have been this week. And you see that eventually, of course, goes out. And then we wait for uh, the stretch of above average temperatures to play out. Then here comes another cold shot. Again, that would be for the end of next week and into next weekend, and that kind of hangs around into the last days of October. And I don't have a sense yet if this is going to be one of these. Is this going to be one of these years where we have a cold October, a cold November, and then we get a pattern flip in December that goes opposite of what we have now? I don't know that that's going to be the case. There's too much going on. There's a lot, with this fast flow you mentioned. There's a lot of things going on, and I once again just go to the idea of keeping an eye on to what's happening in the Western Pacific. I'm going to bring that map up now, and I've been looking at this on a daily basis to try to see if there's any kind of typhoon action, or even some sort of tropical systems that come out and then find their way up to the Aleutians, because they make that trough down at 160, and then that means that we usually have a trough here in the eastern part of the United States. There is something here next week that the GFS keys on and recurves well east of Japan, and then that one winds up flying into a 957 low in the Gulf of Alaska. So that's kind of interesting. And there's another system here late in the period that recurves east of Japan. So let's keep an eye on the Western Pacific, because those typhoons can often be drivers of the pattern here across North America once they play themselves out.
Okay, well, so basically, what we've been saying, folks, for the last 5 minutes, is that things are moving quickly, but the question is, will they continue to propagate? There's a $5 word. Rapidly from west to east on into the early part of November, or will something come down to slow things up for a little while? And the bottom line of it is, we really can't tell. We're just going to have to play it by ear, so to speak, over the coming days and see what takes place, what transpires.
By the way, the somebody posted the super long range GFS that was out like 700 and something hours. Okay. Which takes us to mid-November. They put up the snowfall accumulation forecast for the middle week of November, and it actually had 1 foot accumulations or higher from central New Jersey through all of upstate New York and all of New England. So
that takes us. That takes us when now? Through
the middle. This was for the middle part of November. So I mean, I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Adam Lowe says, Joe, December looks brutal for us. Could get lots of blocking. Well,
that could be.
There you go.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know that we could look at things. I just have. There's so many. How many times have we seen CPC this year, Joe? How many times have we seen CPC put out a forecast for their 8 to 14 day period, or the 6 to 10, or the 8 to 14, and have to backtrack because the whole pattern just flipped on a dime? I mean, it's happened 3 or 4 times this year where that's been the case. So
yeah,
could there be blocking? I know I've been reading stuff from people who watch this sort of thing, that are kind of good at the long range, and they seem to indicate that maybe we will be going into a more than just a short-term blocking pattern as we get toward the last months of the year. But no, it's one typhoon or one tropical storm or hurricane could screw up the whole pattern completely. Just remember that. So take it all with a grain of salt.
Well, let's put it another way. It can't get, if we're looking ahead to December, we can't get any warmer than where we were last December, where we saw near record conditions from coast to coast. And instead of seeing stuff like snow and winter storms, it was more like a spring pattern with severe weather, thunderstorms and tornadoes, especially in parts of the Midwest and the Ohio Valley. So we'll see. We'll see what, sometimes you get, consecutive years where one is so much different, diametrically different or opposite to the other. So last year was so very warm. Who's to say? Maybe this year we'll have an unseasonably cold, and yes, dare I say, maybe snowy December coming up. We'll wait and see on that.
Super chat hits tonight from Anthony Orr and the recovering from surgery David Fuller. Thank you both for hitting the tip jar tonight. It is most appreciated. And on that note, let's jump over to tonight's Briller Jeopardy, which I think you have.
I have it, and I'm going to bring it up right now. From Mr. Briller. Yes, indeed. Here it is. And what do we have here? We have second edition of Briller Jeopardy with the category of the 5 following cities. Are they above or below the national average of 28 inches of snow for the winter? And here's the hint. One of the 5 is tricky. One of the 5 is, I see. You dirty dog, Scott. I see which one is the tricky one. So here we're going to go. First one, Joe, first city, above or below the 28-inch mark for snow in an average winter. We'll start with Bridgeport, Connecticut.
Bridgeport, Connecticut. Small data set. Okay, chat board, Bridgeport, Connecticut. So I'm going to say above. Above the 28.
And what are they saying on the chat board
here?
Well,
David Fuller, Frank Riccio, Anthony Orr, Mark D42, all above, but Mark D42 says below. Mark DeCara says above. Justin Vale above. David Fuller says thank you, Chuck. Christopher Alley says above. Northern Grace says above. And Johnny Quest says even. And Debbie Carroll above, Howard Hassel above, Ken Musillo above. Just about everybody's on board with the above. And you say, Mr. Rayo, the answer is?
This was the tricky one. This was the trick question. This was the one where Bridgeport, Connecticut
was even.
Typically was even, 28 inches. See, there you go.
Johnny Quest said he took a shot and said it even. He got it. He also got it, and he got the first snow of the season. So it only it's only right that he should get this one correct. Next,
he's going to get it. He's going to get a gift certificate from the Michael C. Fina Company,
and not from the Spiegel Catalog Company, Spiegel, Chicago, Illinois, 60609.
609. No. Here we go. Number 2. How about Newark? Newark Liberty Airport.
Newark Liberty Airport. Newark is the next one. So 28 is close for them. I'm going to say above. Justin Vale says below. Chris Alley says below. Justin Vale says below for Newark. David Fuller says above. Tyler Fienga says above. Frank Riccio above. Mike DeCaro below. Debbie Carroll below. Howard Hassel below. Miss Fallerite below. Adam Lowe below. Or just below. Just barely below. Arthur Cotman says above. Welcome, Arthur. I think you're a new name to the chat board. Nice to see you here. I will say above, says Johnny Quest. Christinapedia below. Tommy Clams says above. And on that note, Joe, what is the answer, please?
The answer is above. 29.5, 1.5, or 1.5 inches above the 28-inch average for the country. So Newark was above. All of you who had above, I don't know what the under-over is or the over-under is for betting purposes, but there you go.
Okay. Next.
So number 3 is Roanoke,
Roanoke,
Virginia. Yes.
Beautiful little town, Roanoke. 28 below. Roanoke is below. I say below. And the chat board says Chris Alley says below. Anthony Orr below. Jason Schaefer below.
Low.
A whole slew of belows. Northern Grace, Miss Fowlerite, Ken Musillo, Dennis Cassia says below. Well, Dennis Cassia says below. It has to be below. Howard Hassel.
I was going to say this was going to be the first unanimous until Howard Hassel came along and put above. Otherwise, everybody else is saying below.
Johnny Sachs, late to the party, he says below. So on that note, what is your answer, please, Mr. Rayo?
Below. And it's below by a good number, 22.8, almost 6 inches below the national average of 28. That is for Roanoke, Virginia.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I drove down. I drove down I-81 during the winter months after they had a snowfall in southwestern Virginia, and the mountains there really play a big role into who gets what. There's so many. You drive from up one mountain and you'd see all this snow, and then you'd get into the shadow of another mountain and you would see nothing, and then you would get into another area. So that's sort of how it plays out over there. Debbie Carroll wants to win that fur coat from Dicker and Dicker of Beverly Hills.
Beverly Hills.
Yes. Next.
How about the Block Island, Rhode Island? Are they above 28 or below 28?
That's tricky. Block Island, they've had a lot of big snowstorms over the years, and that might skew the numbers there. I'm going to take a shot and say that they're above, but not by much. I'm going to say above for Block Island. Block Island. Got a whole slew of belows coming again. From Christinapedia, Justin Vale, Debbie Carroll says above. Ken Usillo above. Northern Grace above. Josie above. David Fuller says below by the water, which is possible. But I'm saying above by a little bit. Christinapedia by a teensy bit. Yes, above. Johnny Quest is leaning below because of the warmer ocean water. Tommy Clams above. Dennis Cassia below. Howard Hassel even. Miss Fowlerite below. Patrick Darcy below. Adam Lowe, as I thought it is only 20 inches. Oh, okay. All right, so what's the answer, Mr. Rayo, please?
Adam Lowe, you're a genius. It is below, and the number is 20.5. Joe, you forgot to take into account that mountain range of 5,000 to 7,000 foot mountains that runs from Providence down to Newport, Rhode Island, and then due west over to Norwalk, Connecticut. That's what blocks, obviously, all the snow.
Yes.
And they're in this, obviously, so Block Island is in the snow shack. No, it's nothing to do with that.
Practically the Himalayas. It's our version of the Himalayas that's doing it. All right. What's the final one tonight?
The final one is Topeka.
Oh, Miss Fowlerite, you better get this one right. Topeka, Kansas. 28 is the magic number. I'm going to say below, but not by a lot. Okay? Just a little bit below 28. I'm going to say below. And so does Northern Grace, and so does Jason Schaefer and Anthony Orr, but Steve LaPointe says above. Johnny Sachs says above. Christinapedia, Justin Vale, David Fuller, all below. Chris Alley above. Frank Riccio below. David Carroll below. Arthur Cotman below. Tommy Clams above. Joe Z above. Above by a little bit, says Howard Hasselt. Dennis Cassia, Joe. Dennis Cassia says above. It must be above. And Norm Roberts says below. What say you? Oh, Miss Fowlerite says below. Okay, we're waiting for you. What is your answer, please?
Below, and not just by a little bit, below 21 inches.
Really?
A full 7 inches below the national average of 28.
Gee, when you're a snow lover, you think everybody gets more snow than you do. It really, and I'm surprised. I figured it might be below, and I was thinking maybe on the order of about 25 or 26. The one thing I would like to see but it's they do these 30-year averages, so I would like to see if you took it out the long term, because we saw what happened in New York City with the long-term average is near 30, and then it dropped to 20 in that 30-year average that they used when they had the 70s, 80s, and 90s. So between 2000 and 2010. The average reference was 20 for snowfall for New York, and now, of course, since then, that average is now back up near at 30. So anyway, I just put my 2 cents in.
And Scott wants to let everybody know that his mom's fever finally broke last night after hitting 103.2 on Monday. But he wants to thank everybody for all the prayers, and hopefully she's over the hump, so to speak, and on her way back toward recovery after again contracting COVID-19.
Well, we're good. We're glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. All right, let's wrap it up. Time to say goodnight, Mr. Rayo. So why don't you say goodnight tonight?
Good night to all, and we will be back tomorrow, Thursday at 7:35, and a late super chat hit from Howard Hasselt. Thank you very much, Howard. We'll close the show with Howard Hasselt's super chat hit.
Bang in the tip jar as we say goodbye. Bye-bye, everybody.